What's going on, everybody? Drew here. In this video, what we're going to do is dial in some really sick and brutal death metal and black metal tones with my main amplifier, the Mesa Boogie JP2C. If that sounds interesting to you, you're definitely going to want to stick around and check the rest of this video out. Alright guys, so those of you that watch this channel regularly, you will know that the JP2C is my main amplifier. I love plugging in a variety of different dirt boxes into this amp. I happen to think that it takes pedals really well. It sounds great just going through the clean channel, although I also like to blend in different distortion boxes with the channel too. But before we dial in some tones with this thing, what I wanted to do is just talk about the JP2C itself and just what it is and kind of the lineage of where this amp comes from. So as the name suggests, you know, this is the John Petrucci signature amplifier. Really what this is a Mark Series 2C+, which is John Petrucci's favorite amplifier. You know, some notable users of the Mesa Boogie Mark Series would be James Hetfield and Kirk Hammett from Metallica. Carlos Santana used the Mark Series for a while. I think he was one of the early adopters. I've also seen videos of guys like John Abercrombie using a Mark Series amplifier on stage. It's an amp that really can do almost everything, and I think it does death metal and black metal, some of the more extreme genres of metal, quite well, which you'll find out about in just a second. But this amp is basically, you know, the best tones that the Mark Series has to offer shoved into one giant box and with some modern technology and some other added features. So one of the things that I love about this amp is how easy it is to record with. So in this video, we're going to be plugging in straight from the XLR out on the back. It's basically a cab simulated output, and we're going to use the closed back setting on this amp. But the only other amp that Mesa Boogie makes that has this, some of the newer amps that they've put out, like the Badlander series, they have the cab simulated out, and as well as some of their smaller rectifier amps have that built in as well. This amp is essentially a 3-channel amp, the first channel being a high headroom, low breakup, clean channel that sounds phenomenal. So you get those really nice crystal clear cleans that Dream Theater is known for on their records. You can get some slight breakup sounds with the clean channel if you crank the gain, and I like to keep it at just slightly edge of breakup kind of sound, and then if I throw a dirt box in front of this channel, it handles it quite nicely. But these other two channels are exactly the same, and they're super high gain, and there's, you know, really cool like pull switches. So if you pull this gain switch out, you get even more gain, and then if you pull the presence out, you get sort of another gain stage and an even brighter sound. And then as you turn the treble and mid knobs up, those are almost like gain switches too, which is crazy. So lots of gain, lots of different types of gain on these channels. You know, what I typically do is set it up the way John Petrucci does, where this is my rhythm channel, this is my lead channel. But I find that I don't use this channel really that often. I don't know, I guess I'm not playing as many lead sounds lately, or lead guitar solos. But the other thing that's really amazing about this amp are these two graphic EQs. So all of the older Mark amplifiers, including the Mark V and the Mark VII, the newer one, they only have one graphic EQ, but this one has two. Now, why does it have two? Well, you can assign these graphic EQs to any channel, and you can actually turn them on and off with the foot switch on any channel. So what I typically do is share this graphic EQ for the first two channels, and then the third channel, I'll use this graphic EQ for my lead sound to create a very specific kind of liquid lead. It's almost like a fusion tone. And I'm not going to really go over that in this video, but what makes this amp really convenient for what we're about to do is we're going to play death metal through channel 2, and then we're going to play some black metal sounds in channel 3. And I've set those channels up in sort of a traditional manner. So the first graphic EQ is going to go to channel 2 here, and then the second graphic EQ is going to go to channel 3. So we got death metal here and black metal here, okay? Now, another thing that this amp has is a custom voiced shred switch, which I think was developed for the lower tunings, for 7-string and 8-string guitars. I think they kind of assumed that a lot of modern players like myself would want this amp and would want sort of a custom voice. So you can turn this shred switch on for just channel 2, which I typically do, or you can turn it on for channels 2 and 3. And it just does like a specific thing. So what we're going to do first is create a desirable death metal tone on channel 2, and then after that we'll move over to channel 3. As you can kind of see, I've already set it up to do kind of the black metal thing. So we'll do black metal. And then what I'm going to do later on in the video is share with you guys some pre-recorded songs that I put together just for this video, a death metal song and a black metal song, because ultimately what matters is what the amp sounds like in the mix, okay? An amp or tone could sound really great on its own, but it might sound terrible in the mix. In addition to that, a tone might sound really terrible by itself, but in the mix, it sits just right. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. Last but not least, I'm just using a very common boost pedal, a Boss Super Overdrive. Nothing fancy about this thing other than it's black. It's the 40th anniversary edition. But I'll be turning this on and off as we kind of do some tweaking. So let's dive into some death metal tones. Okay, so those of you guys that are familiar with death metal, you definitely know that the scooped mids thing is kind of like what makes death metal guitar tones sick, at least to me. Okay, so what I've done here is I've cranked the treble, and this is a lot of bass for this sound, so I almost prefer this knob to be kind of like over here. But I've got the presence pulled out, which makes it really bright and scooped sounding. This is a, you know, probably more than enough gain right here, and if I didn't have a noise gate, I'd probably have to put this over like this, but typically I play with a noise gate on. But as you can see over here, I've gone really extreme with this V shape here, so boosting 80 hertz and then 660 hertz, and then I've pulled out the mids like almost completely. But this is how I would probably run this amp if I was going to play a death metal set for my rhythm channel. For whatever reason, today I turned off the shred switch, but usually I keep that on for most of my tone. But since I'm not doing a lot of like palm muted single note type stuff, like gent style stuff, I've opted to turn the shred switch off. That's my death metal tone with the JP2C. All right, guys, so what we're going to do now is listen to a little death metal ditty that I recorded with channel 2 with the settings as shown here. All right, so let's dive into some black metal with the JP2C. So I'm going to switch right over to channel 3, and what's great about this amp is these two channels are identical, right? The only thing that's changed really are, you know, the settings that I have over here, and then the graphic EQ. So it's kind of cool to be able to bounce back and forth between those tones, which we'll do in a second. I kind of took a nod from Teloke, the guitar player from Mayhem. I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name. But I watched his video on black metal guitar tone. What the black metal guys do are crank the treble completely up, the mids completely up, and then if there was a presence, you would turn that up all the way, which we're not going to do that right out of the gate, but I'll show you what that sounds like here in a second. And then I believe you would turn the gain up all the way as well. Most black metal recordings have probably not opted to use this amp because this is more of a mid-range focus amp. A 5150, a 6505, even, you know, various Marshall amps. That's how you would run an amp for black metal. Obviously, you can make black metal with just about any amp that you can find. If you want to make a record with an old practice amp, you know, that sort of thing is encouraged in black metal. But since we have the JP2C here, let's see if we can get a black metal tone out of this thing. Here we go. Well, there you go, guys. Those are my black metal settings for the JP2C. Just crank the treble up all the way, the mids up all the way, remove the bass over here. You can add a little bit of bass back into the circuit with the graphic EQ, but you know, with black metal guitar tone, you really want something that sounds really machine-like and cold, at least to me. And then what I've done is boost that with the super overdrive. What we're gonna do now is listen to a little black metal ditty that I came up with the settings shown on channel 3 and with this graphic EQ over here. Well, there you go, guys. Those are my settings for extreme brutal death metal and frosty cold black metal music. I think this amp is a great option if you play those styles. Obviously, there's a lot of other great amps out there, and at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that you're using what you have and you're creating with what you have. But a couple other amps that I'd love to check out for those styles would be the Rev Gen 120. I know they've got a new version of that amp out. I'd love to check that out. And then another amp that I think would be awesome for these styles would be the Engel Special Edition amp. That thing looks really amazing. And there are tons of other amps out there that would work great for those styles. So in the comment section below, let me know what kind of music you're playing and what your rig is. I'd love to hear from you guys. So thank you so much for checking out this video. I had a great time putting this together for you guys. If you're not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe, and wherever you're at in the world today, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.